Thank you very much, Ben, General Mark. Thank you for inviting me and letting me share some thoughts with you on tomorrow's concept of maneuver warfare and how we prepare for that in the Norwegian Army. My point of departure is strategic thinking. Strategy is the use of the means available to meet a given and desired end state. We can intellectualize it, and we certainly need to contextualize it. But the big picture is about ends, ways, and means, rather than tanks, artillery, and helicopters. Strategy is the ways implementing plans. So strategy is quintessentially about people, because the essence of getting the right balance between ends, ways, and means is to have motivated and skilled soldiers. These soldiers must be trained and educated in warfare, but they also need to have creative and open minds, because tomorrow's fight may well be different from our childhood knowledge. The times, they are a-changing, as Bob Dylan reminds us, and we need to adapt rather than resist change. That said, international law is our first line of defense. Change has to be supported by a moral compass, especially as we have entered the fourth industrial revolution with robotization and automized systems. Let us never forget that the armies and warfare are at core that human thing. It is easy to lose track of this as we enter debates about cyber, space, hybrid this, and gray zone that. To approach the future of maneuver warfare systematically, I find it useful to revisit a great friend of RUSI, Professor Sir Michael Howard, who identified 4 strategic dimensions. The first is the logistical domain, the second is the technological, the third is the operational, and the final, often underestimated, social dimension of warfare that John Keegan and Rupert Smith have written so eloquently about. I will use that framework to discuss the what, the why, the how, and the when to develop our capabilities. Let me turn to the first domain, logistics. In Norway, we have renewed the Cold War concept. We call it the total defense concept. It is about the interplay between government and non-government organization, and especially the commercial sector in times of crisis. But since our society has changed since the 1980s, and so has the concept. Globalization has made ownership to companies an international affair and no longer purely national business. We cannot afford to keep large stocks of supplies for a rainy day. We need to develop new methods for working with our main logistical source, whether it is manpower, spare parts, ammunition, medicine, fuel, food, or transports. Strategic partners are selected and long-term contracts are agreed upon for providing services in war as in peacetime. Our philosophy is still train as you fight. This also relates to reinforcement in crisis, reinforcement from the sea, over land, or from the air. We need to update our host nation support system because our defense plans rely on support from allies, such as the US and the UK early on. We talk about fifth-generation aircraft. We need a fifth-generation host nation support system, and that means that the Norwegian Armed Forces must work in tandem with other parts of society and allies. To some extent, I would offer that the ability to maneuver today and in the future comes down to logistics, one way or another. In this regard, I appreciate the new command being set up in Germany to improve mobility. This slide depicts the battle space wherein the Norwegian Army will maneuver in the future, a multi-domain operational environment where we must be capable of constantly utilize force in space and time together with our allies. We must utilize modern technology, our equipment, our organization, and our men and women in uniform in the best possible way. The physical, sometimes harsh climate the Norwegian Army operates under will not change much. Temperature, weather, mountains, fjords, and valleys represents unforgiving conditions where we have to master full spectrum operations. We operate joint and combined. Interoperability is therefore a standing demand when new technology is introduced. Our vision is to utilize modern technology and to match that with evolving concepts, doctrine, and people. Our new CV90 fleet is fully digitalized and built for the future. Together with our new K-19 Thunder self-propelled howitzers and long-range precision missiles, they will encompass our main combat platform in our digitalized maneuver. But Norway cannot operate alone, so we need to be interoperable in technology and doctrine to plug and play instantly with our close partners and allies. This is one of the reasons I appreciate the UK-led Joint Expeditionary Force. Limited, like-minded nations can do great things together, and we are, of course, stronger together. A complex operational environment requires a robust military structure that up until now has been nationally organized and built. NATO is the cornerstone of Norwegian defense and security policy. To develop modern and relevant military capabilities is economically demanding. Prices are rising much quicker on military equipment, quite contrary to what we see in civil sector. To replace the old capability with a new one can be a hard decision to make. Is it right to buy new tanks, or is there something new coming up that will replace the old warhorse? If you only can procure a few and not too many, how will we be able to stay the fight for the long haul? Our solution is to purchase good enough and off the shelf. We do not want to be the single user. To increase both acquisition and operational effectiveness, we believe that we would have to find one or two strategic partners, nations that are culturally close to us and face the same operational challenges. Together, we can run acquisition programs and build capabilities that can easily operate together due to common doctrine, training, procedures, and logistics. This is not force integration, but that can be the next step if our politicians will allow it. The vampire fallacy, H.R. McMaster calls it, is neglecting war's political and human dimensions. That leads me to Howard's last dimension, the social one. To defend Norway requires all hands on deck. The total defense concept, as we now have revitalized, relies on a conceptual agreement that we have to put we before I. Indeed, as the saying goes, there is no I in team. We still have conscription, and we have been allowed to expand and develop that system according to operational needs. We practice universal conscription. That is conscription for both men and women, which makes it possible for us to choose the best qualified for the job to be done. Combined with enlisted soldiers, we have developed a system that keeps us operationally effective and still in contact with the society we serve. Military service is valued by our society, and our population support for their defense is solid. There are many reasons to this: military relevance, good equipment, professional training that requires effort from every individual, and good leadership focused on solving the mission and taking care of soldiers and equipment are all important factors. Personally, I believe it all comes down to giving our soldiers responsibility and purpose. We can only operate as long as we have support from our society, and to cultivate and grow that support requires a professional attitude combined with solid engagement with the society we serve. To inform, to be open and honest, and to be clear on operational demands are factors that build mutual trust. This includes relations with media. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Howard's 4-dimension may not be sufficient to describe our strategic challenges and how we need to maneuver in 2025. But I believe it is a good framework to identify challenges and overcome obstacles. It helps us talk about the ends, ways, and means nexus, and the importance of strategic thinking. That in turn helps us focus on the most important element of military maneuver, past, present, and future, namely people, soldiers, individually and collectively. Invest properly in your soldiers and you get a tenfold return. Dear friends, the Norwegian Army is ready and will conduct operations and maneuver in all domains tonight if called upon. And we are prepared to do this together with you, our allies and trusted partners. In the end, there is only one way you can get more energy out of a closed system. You have to open it up. This rule applies not only in thermodynamics, but also in military systems. It starts with the individuals, each and every one of us, using Buzz Aldrin's words, "Your mind is like a parachute. If it is not open, it does not work." Thank you.